Welcome back to RV News, the channel where we dig into the latest updates, insights, and behind-the-scenes whispers about the Iraqi Dinar, the Vietnamese Dong, and all things currency revaluation. If you've been following us for a while, you already know that we strive to bring clarity and truth in a world full of speculation, half-truths, and mixed signals. And today, family, we have something that's been shaking the dinar and dong community, a claim from a U.S. bank insider that the long-awaited exchange window could be opening right now. Yes, you heard that correctly. There are whispers that certain banks are preparing, quietly but steadily, for what could be the biggest financial shift of our lifetimes. So let's break this down carefully, analyze what's being said, and see how it connects with the broader picture of global monetary reform. When we talk about a bank insider, it's important to clarify what that actually means. In this case, the source being cited has connections within one of the major U.S. banking institutions. According to reports making the rounds in dinar and dong circles, this insider revealed that key banking platforms have been upgraded, system tests have been run in recent days, and there are green lights for transactions involving currencies that haven't been widely available to exchange at significant rates before. The Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese Dong are at the heart of these discussions. Now, before you jump out of your chair, let's walk through this step by step, because history has shown us that timing is everything, and many signals have come and gone without the RV fully manifesting. Still, what makes this moment different is how many converging factors are aligning. First, let's start with the dinar. Iraq has been under intense international financial scrutiny for years. The country's oil reserves are among the largest in the world, and its strategic importance in the Middle East cannot be overstated. Yet, its currency has remained artificially suppressed, pegged under the shadow of war, sanctions, and economic instability. Over the past 2 years, we've witnessed the Iraqi government, under Prime Minister Soudani's leadership, push hard for economic reforms. These include modernizing the banking system, implementing anti-corruption measures, and moving toward integration with international financial markets. When insiders say that the banks are ready, it lines up with Iraq's own trajectory of wanting to restore its rightful place in the global economy. The deletion of zeros project, talk of reinstatement, and the introduction of digital platforms in Iraqi banks are not just random reforms. They're foundational steps to prepare for a currency that can stand on its own on the world stage. Now let's turn to the dong. Vietnam has quietly been one of the fastest growing economies in Southeast Asia. Manufacturing, exports, and trade partnerships have been booming. Yet, like Iraq, the Vietnamese dong has remained undervalued relative to the country's economic strength. For years, analysts have speculated that Vietnam would allow its currency to appreciate significantly, especially as it continues to expand trade with the United States, the EU, and neighboring Asian economies. What makes the dong particularly interesting is its stability over the past decade, coupled with increasing foreign direct investment. For insiders to mention that banks are preparing to exchange dong alongside dinar tells us that the revaluation narrative may no longer be limited to just Iraq, but part of a larger global currency adjustment. So, what exactly is being said about this exchange window? According to the insider, banks have already set aside special desks and trained personnel for foreign currency holders. Some institutions reportedly have redemption centers, ready separate facilities designed to process large numbers of currency exchanges outside of regular branch traffic. This isn't the first time we've heard of redemption centers, but it's the first time in months that such reports are coming directly from people tied to banking systems rather than just community rumors. If true, this suggests that preparations are not hypothetical, they're operational. Let's pause for a moment and address the skeptics. Many will ask, if this is real, why isn't it all over mainstream news? Why isn't CNBC, Bloomberg, or the Wall Street Journal shouting this from the rooftops? The answer lies in the sensitive nature of global finance. A sudden announcement of an RV could cause chaos in foreign exchange markets, destabilize economies that aren't prepared, and create a frenzy among people rushing to exchange. Instead, the process is likely to unfold in phases, with Tier 1 and Tier 2 groups exchanging quietly before the public is fully aware. This is why many insiders talk about windows rather than exact dates. A window can open, certain groups can move through, and then adjustments are made before it's rolled out more broadly. It's a controlled, step-by-step strategy too. Minimize disruption. Now let's look at some of the broader context. Globally, we're seeing a push toward de-dollarization. Countries like China, Russia, and even BRICS nations have been making moves to settle trade in their own currencies, rather than depending solely on the US dollar. This shift is creating pressure on the dollar-dominated system that has ruled for decades. In response, there are whispers that the US itself is preparing to reset certain aspects of its financial structure, aligning with a more balanced global playing field. This doesn't mean the dollar disappears. Rather, it means the US could strategically allow certain currencies like the dinar and dong to rise in value, stabilizing regions, strengthening trade, and reinforcing alliances. If insiders are correct, the bank systems are already in sync with these potential shifts. So, where does that leave the everyday currency holder? Many of you watching this have been holding dinar and dong for years, waiting patiently through rumors, false alarms, and disappointments. The idea that a US bank insider is confirming readiness will naturally spark excitement, but also anxiety. What should you do? The number one step is preparation. Have your currency organized, documented, and stored securely. Make copies of your purchase receipts if you still have them. Familiarize yourself with what banks in your area may be involved. Stay alert but patient. The last thing you want to do is rush into an exchange unprepared or fall for scams promising overnight riches. When the window officially opens, it will be clear enough for those who are watching closely. Another important element to consider is the possibility of multiple rates. Insiders have often talked about contract rates versus public rates. A contract rate is a special rate offered to certain groups, often tied to agreements or humanitarian projects. Public rates, on the other hand, are what the general population may see once the RV is fully live. This ties into why some exchanges could happen quietly first. Those with prearranged agreements move early, while the public rollout comes later. If what we're hearing about bank readiness is accurate, it's possible that contract exchanges are already being scheduled in this current window. That would explain the insider's choice of words "opening now." It may not mean everyone can rush to the bank today, but it does suggest that the process is underway. Let's also address timing. The phrase "opening now" doesn't always mean immediate public access. It can mean the systems have been activated, that first groups are moving, and that banks are on standby for broader participation. Timing is tricky because it's influenced by geopolitical events, market conditions, and internal decisions by central banks. However, one of the most compelling reasons to believe we're closer than ever is the synchronization we're seeing: Iraq's reforms, Vietnam's economic surge, U.S. banking preparations, and the broader de-dollarization wave. These are not isolated events, they're interconnected pieces of a puzzle that has been years in the making. We also have to talk about psychology. For years, many in the dinar and dong community have experienced RV fatigue. Each time rumors spike and then fade, people lose a little more hope. But consider this: transformative financial events rarely happen overnight. They build slowly, with groundwork being laid quietly until the tipping point arrives. If insiders are right, we may now be at the cusp of that tipping point. The groundwork, technological upgrades in banks, training of staff, currency reforms overseas has been ongoing for years. The idea that all of it could converge now is not far-fetched. In fact, it's exactly how large-scale financial resets occur. Now, let's circle back to the banks. The insider mentioned that U.S. banks are not acting alone. International coordination is part of the plan. That means institutions in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East are also prepared. When the RV happens, it's not just a U.S. event, it's a global financial recalibration. Iraq and Vietnam are key players, but they are part of a larger network of currencies that may see adjustments. This explains why banks are so cautious and why mainstream coverage is limited. Imagine the chaos if every major news outlet reported tomorrow that the dinar is suddenly worth multiple US dollars. The system would be overwhelmed. Instead, the rollout is being managed in phases, starting with those who are paying closest attention. For those watching RV News right now, your advantage is awareness. Most of the world is completely in the dark about what